Jay Larson, CEO of the Idaho Technology Council. Thank you for joining us for our weekly podcast, Innovation Matters. Idaho continues to see growth and has been rated the fastest growing state in our nation at 2.1%, and the growth requires capital. I want to have a reference. Benjamin Franklin said, without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. Capital providers can help us vet out necessary processes, progress, and grow. The growth that Benjamin Franklin was talking about. So today we have capital providers. We have David Glaser with President of Mofi, and Molly Otter, who's an investment partner at Sage Growth Capital. Capital providers investing right here in Idaho. But first, let's go to Blake Hansen, managing partner from Alturas Capital. He joins us today to talk about the Idaho Deal Flow Report, which will be released June 11th digitally at the Idaho Technology Council's virtual Capital Connect conference. Blake, welcome to Innovation Matters.
Thanks, Jay. Glad to be here.
So Blake, talk to us a little bit about, here we have a deal flow report that shows nearly $4 billion in 2019 that we were able to show. How important is growing capital to growing an innovative economy in Idaho?
Well, I guess that's a good question. Some time ago, you had mentioned to me that one of the number one things that Idaho companies were saying to you when you went around the state was, we need capital to grow. And, I don't know, personally, is capital the number one driver? Is talent the number one driver? Is innovation, creativity? I can't tell you what, the rank order is. But I think over the last 5 years that we've been tracking data in Idaho, we've clearly seen that when companies have good people and good ideas, they attract capital. And so I look at it maybe less as how important is capital to growing Idaho, and I more look at it like capital is a benchmark that helps us know that good things are happening in the state. So, I don't know if that may not be the answer you're looking for, but yeah, absolutely. Companies need to grow. Entrepreneurs want to have upside. Business owners want to have upside. And a lot of that requires a robust capital environment. And I think we're seeing that really come together in Idaho.
No, I really like the way that you just said that, though, because you would want to use capital as a benchmark, right? Because it shows, because you have people like what you do, a lot of other people, you'll come in and you'll take a look at companies that could potentially be invested in, and allows you to vet out those, because you want to invest in good leadership teams, good companies, good ideas, good products. So it allows that to happen. What do you think the biggest shift has taken place in the state of Blake over the last 10 years? Any last decade? Any thoughts about that?
Well, I've always said that in order to create the type of business climate and business environment that gets that flywheel really to spin in a great way, you've got to have entrepreneurs investing in entrepreneurs. You've got to have small companies, mid-sized companies, and big companies. And the big companies become incubators for small companies. The larger and more successful companies create mentors. They create expertise. You get pockets or clusters of industry knowledge base within an ecosystem. And I think you're seeing some of that play out. You're seeing some of the bigger exits and some of those companies and founders and executive teams that are turning right back around investing in Idaho companies. And so that's where the inertia starts coming. And I think you're seeing that more than you've ever seen it before today. In addition, I think because Idaho's differentiated and, Idaho and the Intermountain West from the coasts, I think you see more and more people who are disillusioned with the coasts, Washington, Oregon, California, and are looking to still be in the West, and not necessarily be along the coast. And so they're finding a home in Idaho. And so, they're bringing talent, they're bringing creativity, and we're seeing a lot of new innovative companies emerging because of that dynamic.
Yeah, I think you're right. The in-migration of talent has been amazing that we've been able to get coming to the area based upon a lot of people wanting to come. That we'll be talking with Dave Glaser as we talk about this with Mofi, because people are also coming to places like he's up in Missoula and Bozeman, and those are beautiful areas too, right? Just like Idaho has a lot of these other type of things. So people are looking for shifts. But the big thing that takes place as you look at it, Blake, why do you think? Or how important it is to have capital providers that are actually located in the state? Like you were referencing, like a lot of the companies have grown here. A lot of them have been ones that have been organic to the area. They've had launch pads out of HP, other areas. Why is it so important to have local funding?
Well, I think that really speaks to what I see as the foundation, which is local successful people investing in local successful people. And um, that's what attracts the outside capital, is when we invest in ourselves first. I think a good place to look on that is Stage.O, and coming to Idaho, setting roots, establishing a physical location, with Idaho money, Idaho investors, Idaho talent, Idaho companies. That's really exciting for me to see that. We've always had great companies that attract outside capital, but we're also starting to see local capital. Sage Growth Capital, Mofi. I know you guys maybe started in Montana, but I consider you guys Idaho just as much as Sage Growth or Stage.O. And that's important for us to have these local capital providers that are building up the entrepreneurial community.
So Blake, if you wanted to say this, because one of the things that you might not want me to say this part, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think that you're one of the most innovative people as it comes to capital and more connected and understanding the markets and all the things in Idaho. You and I have actually traveled the state. We've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time talking about what's taking place throughout the state. If you can, what do you think are what's the biggest obstacle for us right now that we have to overcome to be able to continue to grow, or maybe even the best opportunity for us to grow capital in Idaho?
I think it's a mindset. I think that we have to believe that great things can happen in Idaho, that we really can compete across the world. And sometimes we don't believe it. We don't believe like that the budding entrepreneur or the local business owner has a fighting chance because they're in Idaho. And that we've got to get past that. I think we are. I think I've seen that mindset changing, and it's changed a lot. But we have to believe. Look at the history of our largest employer in Idaho. I wish we could get back to that story. The story of local agriculture billionaire, who invests in local technology company and helps them get to where they are. So J.R. Simplot, who, with deep Idaho roots and a deep Idaho, ag roots, takes a chance on semiconductor, like high technology back in the 1970s. So we just need that story to play out more and more and more. We need more.
I agree. I agree, Blake. And I remember being at a meeting with J.R. Simplot where he actually was speaking over Boise State when I was younger, much younger. And he he says, "Hell, you guys could do about anything, right?" And all of a sudden, everybody's sitting there. They go, "You can do these things," and to see what people can do if they believe and they go out and make something happen. But obviously, capital is a big part of that equation, because the capital that they gave and invested into Micron was a major part of the success of Micron, as well as other capital providers that came in and put money into Micron with that. What I if you could also the other thought on this. Oh, and what I was thinking that you could do. What's this big thing? Because I think that I was talking to a couple people. Tom Lotzenheiser made the same point. When you say think big, what? Any thoughts? Any more thoughts about that?
I mean, I just think there's this notion, this conventional wisdom that says you have to be in San Francisco to compete, that you have to be in Boston or New York City or something like that. And it's clearly not true. We're seeing more and more and more examples of that just being wrong. In fact, there's competitive differentiation from starting your company in Boise, Idaho, when you don't have the cost structure of San Francisco and New York and Boston and other things. So I just think we have to believe that. We have to let it play out, and we've got to start taking chances, and more people have to step up and just continue supporting the ecosystem. And that's not a critical thing. I'm not trying to be excessively critical. We have a bunch of people who are stepping up, who are taking chances, who are putting their necks out there, and who are doing great things. And we just need to continue to see that. We just need to do our part, each one of us, wherever we are. And I'm so optimistic because we're tracking the deal flow and we're seeing it. We're seeing this happen. We're seeing the companies start. We're seeing the capital come. We're seeing the capital forming. I mean, Sage Growth Capital, that's another one of those stories, of the capital forming here in Idaho. And is it as big as we wish it were? No, but you got to start. We need to just keep starting, and the path that we're on is a great path. And
it's bigger than where it was 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. Let me ask you, this is one question, last one for you, Blake, because I know you're going to talk a lot about the Idaho Deal Flow Report for 2019 next week at Capital Connect. But as we go along, one of the areas that's taken place because of all of the situation on the focus on making sure that we are engaging as support each other on the humanity that we have in our state and all those type of things. How do you think Idaho does with all of the riots and everything does? And a couple nights ago at the Capitol steps, there was a very peaceful demonstration about everybody coming together about that, to be able to talk about the things or show solidarity around how humane we are to each other. What are your thoughts about how Idaho treats each other?
I mean, I think we have an Idaho way that's good and bad. I think that we can't play into the stereotypes, and we have to do a better job of rising above the stereotypes. And I mean, I don't want to harp on the negative, but I think we're isolated from a lot of that, but we're also a little bit not exposed in the same way. I mean, I don't know, Jay. I have a hard time getting political about it, but I'm optimistic that because I know that the good people in Idaho, and I've seen it. I'm a native Idahoan. I know how it is, and I think people are good. And I don't know what else do you want me to say.
Well, I think you said it right. Right, is that there's a double edge. There's a lot of things we can continue to do to improve. We're a little bit isolated from some of these things, but I also think that we need to continue to look for ways to be able to to continue to diversify and find our ways to be able to continue to build innovation and diverse thought. So I think it's good, Blake. Thank you for that. So, Blake, are you any last question? Any big comments you want to make about, or any tidbit of information about the Idaho Deal Flow Report you're going to talk about next Thursday at noon?
I mean, it's exciting. 2019 was an exciting year. I mean, we had one of our companies get to the $1 billion mark, and on a trajectory here that's really exciting. 2020 has already been kind of exciting too. We've got some Series A investments here some big firms doing some big things with Idaho companies, and always those stories of who's going to be the next IPO, and who's this and that. And Albertsons just took another big step towards that, and Andy Scoggins going to be talking about that. So I mean, it's 2019, it's 2020, it's what we've done in the past, it's what's happening now. And I just hope more people can sign up, come join us next week and get a copy of the deal flow report. Tell us what we missed, tell us what we got wrong, and be a part of building this community, and see the deal flow report as something that is empowering more companies to start, grow, and thrive right here in Idaho.
That's great, Blake. I thank you for making time with us today. Make sure you join us next week to hear Blake even more on the Idaho Deal Flow Report. And thanks for all that you do to be able to create a unified community around capital. Thanks, Blake.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. And thanks to the ITC. I mean, it takes a community, and we have a great community. And that's why I'm so optimistic, because the business climate's great. The people are great. Capital's flowing, talent's flowing. I mean, just all the component parts are coming together. And it's such a great time to be here doing what we're doing.
Thank you, Blake. Thanks for the role you play and your leadership. Now let's move over, and we have Molly Otter from Sage Growth Capital. Molly, welcome to Innovation Matters.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Well, this is so cool. We really, Blake is right. We are very privileged to have a capital provider like Sage Growth Capital here. Talk a little bit about the unique things that you do through Sage Growth Capital, and kind of what your target is within the capital arena.
Yeah, so Sage Growth Capital is unique in that we are trying to use revenue-based financing, which is a whole new form of financing that kind of came about 6 years ago. It started being practiced on the coasts. We are trying to use that here in Idaho to help growing companies that are having trouble finding financing grow to the next level. So it is a different type of capital in that we don't take equity ownership in any of the businesses we invest in, and we are totally flexible about the type of industries we look at. And it's great because my background is in the revenue-based finance industry. I got to do that for 5 years and kind of pioneer it in Washington and Seattle. And my two other partners, Kevin Leonard and Denise Dunlap, are angel investors. So we get to kind of combine those two specialties into one while we're working on Idaho companies, which is fun because it's where my husband's from and it's where his roots are. So I'm from New Hampshire, so Idaho feels very similar to New Hampshire to me in many ways. And so that's also been great for us and for our family.
Molly, it's great because I actually spoke about a year and a half ago to a group out in Massachusetts, because they compare Idaho with respect to the population, the economy, a lot of these things. So we're glad to have you here in Idaho. So thank you we'll call you an Idaho transplant now. So
Thanks, I appreciate that.
So this is great. You turn around and you'll take, so as a company comes in, you give them basically a loan, and they'll pay it back through the revenues they make. And you've had some really fun success stories here, or that you're working with right now in the Boise marketplace. Can you talk about any of those?
Yeah, we've made 2 investments already. So we closed our fund. We started our fund almost a year ago this month. And we've already made 2 investments out of it, which is pretty exciting. Both Idaho-based companies, both in the food sector. One is Killer Creamery, which does ice cream, keto ice cream. But really, if you think about it, it's just a reduced sugar ice cream. And I think that's really important from where we're going from a diet perspective in the country. And they've had huge success, and they needed help kind of with more money to build up their inventories going into the summer season. So we've done 2 investments with them, and then one with Melt, which is the plant-based butter company that is based here. And we just recently closed that one to help them on a cheese line that they're building out. So they're going to have a plant-based cheese that they've already kind of gotten a lot of interest in, which we're excited to be able to help them with. And the way it works is we make our investment. It is a loan, although we don't do any personal guarantees or any guarantees on the business. It's more like a contract on the revenue. We get a percentage of revenue that is set every month until a certain multiple of the original amount of investment is paid back. It's usually 2 to 3x the original amount. And it's structured to be long-term, so it's over 5 years. We give people about 3 months of grace period before they start paying us. So hopefully they're utilizing the funds. And the idea is for the company to really grow. And that's been successful in the past with other businesses that I've worked with, and we're hoping it's going to be successful here.
So it's very targeted where they use the money. They probably have a great idea, like the cheese on the melt side. It's going to be used in a very specific way.
Exactly. The more targeted they are and the better they understand how they're going to grow their business, the better our funds are for them, because they are paying us back over a period of time, and they want to be able to get a bigger bang for their buck than it costs them to pay us back. So the better that they know how they're going to get the growth out of their business, the more successful both of us will be in terms of the returns.
Did you have a great? I mean, with you, Kevin, and Denise, what a fantastic team you've amassed at Sage Growth Capital. What do you see? I mean, as if you take a look at the Idaho marketplace now, coming from your experience from the East, and then you've been working in the West Coast and Washington and so forth, what do you see happening in the Idaho marketplace over the next 5 years?
Well, I think it's going to be a growing marketplace. I think we're actually really well positioned to grow because I'm watching all of my friends on the West Coast trying to find another place to live right now. So I think there's going to be a huge influx of talent. To Blake's point, you need talent. And I think there's going to be a big influx of that. And with talent, you usually also bring capital. Those talented people know other people that they can call in order to get that capital. So whether it's here in Idaho that the capital comes, or if it comes from other areas, I think if we see a continued influx, which Idaho is already seeing, of talented people, it's going to continue to grow. Also, ironically, I think Idaho has really benefited from COVID-19. That's probably not something that people want to say, but both of Sage's investments have been in the food industry so far. And that's been a great place to be during COVID-19 because people are going to the grocery store and buying food there. And so our companies are having people purchase their food that never would have before because there might have been out of stocks on butter or out of stocks on ice cream. And so they're trying a different brand because they want to have that ice cream for dessert tonight. And that's worked really well. And there are a ton of Idaho companies that are food based because of J.R. Simplot and Simplot being here, and because of Albertsons being here. And so I think both of those things may really help Idaho in the long run.
Yeah, it's amazing that kind of the synergy that's taking place. What are you hearing from some of your friends that they're saying because of COVID-19 and whether they're trying to relocate? What are they looking for?
I mean, they're looking for more space so they can get outside. I'm on the younger set, so I have children, and so do most of my friends. And so being able to get outside with your kids is really important. And if you're stuck in a condo in New York City or in an apartment in New York City, that's not an ideal place to ride out what's happening there. Same thing with Seattle. Lots of people are in very tight houses right next to each other. And so the idea of having more land and not having to be kind of cooped up is becoming much more appealing. And with everything going to Zoom calls, it's much more flexible. And it seems like a lot of the technology companies, especially, are sticking with those Zoom calls at least through the end of the year. So people have a lot more flexibility in terms of where they're going to be able to live. I know a bunch of people who are renting homes for the summer just because why not? I don't have to be where I was living, and I can try a new place out just to see if I like it.
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the big things that I've really liked about in talking with you and Denise and Kevin is that at the heart of what we need to build is the entrepreneur. So if you can think about what can we do collectively as a group, that's really, I mean, because I think Blake talked about this. Capital is a benchmark, about what it is, but really the true equation is what are we doing to be able to grow entrepreneurs and people have ideas so they can create new products and services and companies. What can we do to be able to grow better entrepreneurs in Idaho?
Well, I really think education is super important for entrepreneurs. And I know Trailhead does a great job of that, and the Venture College does, and ITC, getting people when they're young and starting to educate them. And we at Sage are trying that. We're doing kind of Sage advice sessions once a quarter. We have one coming up on June 16th where we talk about the cost of equity, kind of what does it cost you when somebody invests in your business and what those additional rounds look like. And just trying to get out there and educate people more, because if you don't educate entrepreneurs, they may have a great idea, but it can't come to fruition because they don't know how to follow through with it. How do I set up my business? How do I make sure I get the right investments? How do I make sure I hire the right people at the right time? And there are great resources out there that you can use through, listening to podcasts or researching online. But a lot of times it's mentoring and talking to people in person that really gets you over the hump. And so I think within Idaho, just continuing to add to that community of education is going to help us generate more entrepreneurs and more great businesses. It's why, like, when Blake talks about these businesses coming out of HP or Albertsons or Simplot, it's because they've gotten mentorship within those bigger organizations that are helping them with their newer businesses.
Yeah, and I think we're going to do another round of this, and I think Blake has been really instrumental on this too. Is that, have you ever seen that solar system map where it talks about like HP and it has Micron and the companies that have grown from that solar system? I think we want to take a look at this thing when we talk about where have companies launched from, and then look at this, because what's happening is we're having a lot more entrepreneurship that's coming, people coming back from a lot of different things. Like Clearwater Analytics came from people working at Goldman Sachs and coming back to Boise, and there's just this great a great talent pool that's starting to come back. Like you're coming here from Massachusetts. I mean, excuse me,
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Why am I doing that? Okay, but if I could, this is the part that I think would be great. If you could say how do you see Sage Growth Capital growing, and what can people do to contact you and to be able to get this advice? You talked about having Sage meetings. What can they do to follow you?
Yeah, well, we do a bunch of blogging on our website, but Sage advice is once a quarter, and it's online. You just register at our website, which is sagegrowthcapital.com. And then Kevin Lerner does office hours. So you can always talk to him, and he's got tons of advice, having been an angel investor for a very long time and have started his own company. So he's kind of the older gray-haired person in our shop who does a great job kind of being a mentor for people out there.
Yeah. Kevin's great. Does he still ride his bike? That's what I need to know about.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. He's great. He's great. So he does a lot more for carbon emissions than anybody else in the state of Idaho. So I love that. So, that's great, Molly. Thank you so much. Anything else that any last piece of advice for anybody starting a company? What's the number one thing you would tell them?
The number one thing I would tell them is to make sure their legal docs are in order. That sounds really boring, but it really hurts you in the long run if you don't set up your company properly. So just make sure you get that right before you go out the gate, because otherwise you could spend a lot of money correcting that in the future. And I know that's like the boring thing, but I'm on the debt side of the house. And so we think about the boring stuff, not the exciting, have a great big idea side of it.
And you can go to the Small Business Development Center. You can get help that doesn't cost you hardly anything.
I mean, the documents are out there. It's really easy to do. Yeah. I know a bunch of banks do help sessions on how to set that up properly. The Small Business Center is great. All those places can definitely get you over the hump on it, and it will save you so much trouble in the long run.
No, I think that's a great suggestion, Molly. Molly, thank you so much, and welcome back to Idaho and all of the connections you have here. We're so excited about Sage Growth Capital and what you're going to be able to do here. So
thanks for having me on, Jay. Great work with the ITC.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Molly. And now let's bring Dave Glaser in from Mofi. David, welcome to Innovation Matters.
Thanks, Jay. It's good to be here.
We really appreciate having you on, and it's interesting because I thought when we were going to talk that I was going to have somebody that was like, I'm looking at your house with the guitar, the drums in the background. When we started talking, you and I had a discussion. I thought you were going to be like in the Highlands or somewhere in the North End, right? But you're actually up in Missoula, Montana. So welcome.
Missoula is kind of like the far North End, right?
It is. That's a very good point. We should talk about that, because that's an extension of the north end of Boise right here.
If only we could have air service between Missoula and Boise, we'd be
if you could. We'll count on you to fix that, because that would really help us if we could get to each other within about 45 minutes, if that were the case. So, but I do think this is great, because I really think that there's, after traveling and being responsible for 5 different states, and Montana was one of them, and I got to travel to Bozeman and Missoula often. it's just a beautiful and an exploding area. So congratulations, because I think that you could take the triangle of innovation. We go from Bozeman, Missoula to Boise, right? I mean, there's so many cool things. So, but talk to us about what Mofi does.
Mofi is a lender. We provide debt, just like Sage Growth, and we provide debt in two main ways. To nearly bankable businesses across the Northern Rockies. So these are businesses in Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, Washington, and Oregon. And these are businesses that can't get all or part of their financing from a traditional lender like a bank or a credit union. These are generally small businesses. Within 2 miles of where each of you are sitting, there are guaranteed Mofi borrowers. We've helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of small businesses in Idaho get the capital they needed to start or grow.
And multiple industries, right, Dave? I mean, so you have, like I know you might be in the food industry, but you've also do tech loans as well, right?
Yeah, pretty much any industry you can think of, we've made loans to. We won't make loans to the federally illegal industries, but pretty much everything else.
Okay, fantastic. So
turns out all of us at some point in our lives are going to be nearly bankable. And so lots of different businesses.
So if you can, but the difference between you and Sage Growth Capital, but you're not revenue based, right? Yours is going to be just a loan. You give a company a loan and expect them at an interest rate, and they're going to pay you back, right?
That's exactly right. So we're fixed rate and longer term financing. That said, our businesses don't stay with us. So as soon as we make a loan to a business, we're trying to make them bankable. We're trying to help them get to the financial mainstream. And it generally, pre-COVID, took us about 24 months on average to make a business bankable. And
Wow.
So then we usher them to the financial mainstream and we move on to the next business.
You help them get to the point where they have revenues, they have new customers, and they have probably a break-even point where they probably come through or something like that. And then the bank will look at them much more.
Yeah, they'd look even better than break even. To be
better.
bankable, they're going to look very solid financially,
Right.
and be established with good credit and solid revenues and solid margins. So,
No, that's tremendous. And so, and you mentioned this, but you have the same success as banks. I mean, with respect to you're taking some risk, a little bit bigger risk than what a bank normally would, but you have the same success with respect to loan failure, correct?
yeah, we roughly over the last 5 years have lost just under 1% of our loans. And every single one of our small business loans are to businesses that couldn't get a bank loan. So
how many loans, do you know how many you've made in Idaho specifically, or is that just a?
Yeah. As of today, that number would be roughly 450 businesses have received a loan from us in some form across the state. In every community, there isn't a place we haven't lent money. And
Wow.
some of it's small business financing. And then our other main product is new market tax credits financing.
Yeah, talk to us about that.
Which is a very different financing mechanism.
Yeah.
So we have small business financing for nearly bankable businesses. Just as an aside, we also provide PPP loans, and we've done that to a lot of Idaho businesses. In fact, I was on the phone with, I think, one of your members just before this call who is going to be applying tonight for a PPP loan. So new market tax credits is a federal tax credit. It's a program that the US Treasury and IRS put together back in 2002. And it is meant to incentivize development in low-income areas across the United States. As of today, about $50 billion worth of projects have been financed across the US, and in Idaho, almost 200 million in projects that we have financed. And those projects range in size as small as about $6 million and as large as about $57 million. And they're all across the state. Our very first investment in Idaho was in 2011, and that was the expansion of the Kootenai Health Medical up in Coeur d'Alene.
Coeur d'Alene, yeah.
And our most recent investment was MC, the expansion, the new headquarters for MC in Moscow. But we've also financed new manufacturing facilities in Shelley, Idaho, in Pocatello, Idaho, Caldwell, everywhere in between.
So that's fantastic. And those are, a lot of those are manufacturing or buildings that you're helping build, like MC is a building, like Kootenai Regional Medical Center is going through a major transformation right now, but you help propel them to where they are today. So this is great because how important your area, you have the chance to see Washington, Oregon, Wyoming, right?
Idaho, Montana.
Idaho. What are your thoughts? How bullish are you on the Idaho marketplace?
Well, I'll tell you, one of my favorite stories back in 2011, I got calls from folks in Idaho saying, "Hey, you guys should come down here." It was actually 2010. You should come down to Idaho. And I got 3 calls. And I always kind of operate on 3s. If I'm asked 3 times to do something, I sure as heck should pay attention. So I got on a plane and I flew down to Boise. And I spent the day meeting important people around Boise, bankers and economic development professionals and business owners. And I had never felt more welcome ever in all the places I've traveled than I did that day. The red carpet came out and it left a permanent impression on me that the people in Boise and Idaho generally are completely open to making their community, their state, as awesome as it can possibly can be, and welcoming people from the outside with capital and talent to make it that way. And we opened our office in 2016 in Boise, and in all those years, like I said, it's like 400 businesses we've invested in that time, totaling over 300 million at least. And it's just an astonishing place to do business. And we've had 2 of our staff actually relocate. They thought Bozeman was nice and all, but they moved to Boise because it was better.
Well, we like that. So we're waiting to get you out of Missoula. We're trying to find a way to get you transplanted over here, Dave. So no,
that's more terrible winter. I'm on my way.
Yeah, go ahead, come. Yeah, if you come, it'll be a winter like we had like 2.5, 3 years ago when we had the snowmageddon of life. But it's really good because the Idaho has a unique deal where we really like to make sure we focus on growing things, but we want to do the right things. We want to do. Blake talked about this really quick. We want to help people start, grow, and thrive, but we really want to do the right things and make sure that we take care of like. If you find a campsite, you're there, leave it in better shape than what you found it. So, no, I really appreciate those comments. So if you could right now talk about, I asked the same question to Molly. What do you think are the most important things that business owners can do as they continue to look to grow a company, to be able to expand it? What can they do to help them? What kind of advice would you have for them?
I guess I would have 2 main pieces of advice. And it's not up to the business owner necessarily, unless they're going to move their company. But I can tell you that the company is in Boise, the company is in Bozeman, and the company is in Missoula. Have their companies there because they wanted to attract the best talent possible. Because those places have 3 really critical things that you will not grow a business without. And that is really good education. Smart people live someplace where their kids can go to great schools, really great access to the outdoors and parks and open space. I mean, Boise is second to none in the Western United States for immediate access to awesome outdoor amenities. And then the last thing is infrastructure. You can't have a great business unless you have the infrastructure necessary to support it. And I would say that Boise is just killing it relative to its peers in the West when it comes to those 3 things. But then at a micro level, so that putting your business in the right place is key. But then at a more micro level, I think making sure that, kind of to Molly's point, that you have your ducks in a row before you move. And that is to say, move forward on pulling in capital, whether it's legal documents like Molly mentioned, or just having a plan. Because as soon as you start going, it's going to start moving, and you're going to end up someplace, if you don't have a plan, that you're going to have to pay your way out of potentially. So at least having within 15 degrees the direction you want to head. There's going to be some changes, but if you don't have a plan in place, you're not going to have it. You're going to end up someplace you don't want to be.
Yeah, that was great. We had Steve Young come and speak to our Hall of Fame 2 years ago. And Steve Young, the professional football player, now he works for HEGC, a major investment fund. He goes, my dad always talked to me, have a plan and execute the plan. And I think that's exactly right. I mean, if you don't have, it's all the idea, if you don't have a good plan, then you plan to fail. So I think that's a great idea, Dave. And I also wanted to ask you the last question. How can people optimize Mofi? Give us some suggestions.
Yeah, let me touch base a little bit more on new market tax credits, because I think
Okay.
your audience is going to be really interested in that. So as I mentioned, it's incentive rate financing. It is meant to incentivize businesses to expand, grow, start. It is meant for large projects. And so if you as a CEO or CFO are looking to build a new headquarters or expand a current part of your operation, and that expansion is larger than 5 million, all in, hard and soft costs, you should just call us. Reach out to us, mofi.org, and we'll kind of run through and see if you might be eligible for new markets financing. That financing, at the end of the day, it provides up to 20% of the total project costs as a 1% interest-only loan that is forgiven at the end of 7 years. Wow. So it's actually equity. It's a huge incentive that a lot of Idaho businesses have been able to utilize to grow their businesses like crazy.
That is an awesome. So, and the primary idea there is you're trying to bring additional jobs to underserved areas and those type of things. So we should have. I actually have a couple of people I want to refer to you. So
awesome.
So we'll have the best way to be able to get a hold of people within Mofi. What should they do?
Well, they can call me. They can call toll free 844-728-9234. I'm happy to chat with them.
Okay, and let's go to the Mofi website, and they can get more information on that too, and to find it. Yep. I was amazed when I was reading the new markets tax credit. I was really amazed by that, David. I think that's really an awesome thing. So, all right, I wanted to tell you thank you so much, and we appreciate. Look forward to having you back down to Boise after the COVID-19 thing kind of settles down a little bit more. So, love to have you here. And we'll look forward to have you and Molly and Blake. We're going to do a Capital Connect probably sometime in October, and we'll look forward to having you there. And you can work closer with Blake and Allison Johnson with the Capital Connect group with the Idaho Technology Council. So thanks so much, Dave. Thank you. Next week, we hope you join us for the Capital Connect virtual conference in lieu of Innovation Matters, and that will be at noon to 1:30, and you can go to the Idaho Technology Council website, idahotechcouncil.org, to register for that. You won't want to miss Andy Scoggin from Albertsons discussing the $1.75 billion equity investment by Apollo Group Management. Mike Self from Stage Idaho will talk about highlighting Idaho's economy and emerging companies, and will showcase entrepreneurs and companies, including Tackle.io, Black Sage, and Crave Delivery. And of course, Blake Hansen will release the 2019 Idaho Deal Flow Report, and Allison Johnson will also talk about one of our major initiatives, 50 to the A. And again, this is Jay Larson. We're so very thankful for having Blake, Molly, and Dave on the show today. And we're keeping you connected with industry and government, because in Idaho, innovation matters. Thanks, and have a great day.